영화도 하던 시절 느낌이네. 시간 낭비 페인 시절. Sup, bro? I played this game like in high school, and I think I made because like even back then in Korea at least, um, like selling items for real money was like a very new thing, and the society was confused whether they're gonna, you know, accept it as a like a proper crime or not. It is now. Like if you um, scam other people with digital items, it is technically classified as crime now. Back then, it wasn't as clear, so people would do a lot of scams, selling swords, items, and stuff. Um, I think back then I made about $3,000 overall playing this game for I think the entirety of my high school. And $3,000 as a kid back then was a lot of money. Hey Chris. And you gotta think about it, back then there was no quests. It was literally just turning on your game and then killing monsters for like 8 hours, right? That's all you do. And then it wasn't even just mindlessly killing whatever monsters. Like you have to factor in a lot of stuff. I was using a class which is this one right now. Oh shit, where's the items? Which is the elves. So elves were ranged classes using bow and arrows, right? In this game, it was like real. There was like no shortcut. You had to buy arrows. And it wasn't just automatic infinite arrows, right? You had to buy every single arrows, and they costed money, in-game money, and they also counted towards weight. And if your character has more than 50% of health, the weight, and the weight is based on some of the items and also your strength stats. If you are over 50% weight, you weren't able to naturally regenerate health and mana. You had to use potions, right? So that's already a negative factor in your grinding, because you won't naturally heal up unless you use potions, which of course cost money, or use the healing magic, which in the elves case you couldn't use until level 40, which was quite high. Like there was no level cap back then; it was about 50. That's like that's the soft cap. 50 was the soft cap, and you couldn't use healing until level 40. So I wasn't able to heal unless I used potions, right? And potions cost money in game. So while I was grinding, where the hell did the quest go? While I was grinding, I had to factor in this game itself is free, yes, but it's microtransactions. So I had to grind for 1 hour at a specific spot, and then I have to calculate my overall profit, right? Which would be after the cost of buying all the potions. That would put me just over 50%. So when I naturally use arrows and potions, my weight would decrease, so that I would be around the 40 to 50 mark, right? So I would buy my arrows and my potions to be just over 50% of my weight after putting out all the unnecessary stuff that are not my gear into my storage. And then so I have to calculate the weight so that it's optimal, so that I won't always be overweight, so that I could at some point naturally heal myself while I walk around in the field, right? And then I'll grind for an hour and then see whether I have enough potions left, plus whether I have enough arrows left. And then I would then calculate how much actually my gold income was in that hour. And then I have to make a decision whether to continue farming there or find another optimal place. So I would do that, and there would never be the same spot. Just because you found an optimal place, it will never be the same, because now there are other two factors. First, how many people are online at the time and in my area, right? And second, you could kill other people in this game without warning. So like world PvP, but more brutal because I'll talk about that later. But world PvP was active. You could at any point kill people, and of course, if you kill people, you also get penalized for becoming a violent person. There was a system called Lawful and Chaotic. So see, my ID right now is blue. If your ID is blue, that means you're lawful. That means you never killed anyone. Thank you for that host, whoever it was. Hey, Brandon hosted me for no reason, but I love you still. I don't really deserve the hosting, but thank you anyway. You should have hosted someone much more sexier than you are, or I am in that case. But anyways, the system of being lawful and chaotic, which I guess I have to briefly kind of explain because it's quite related. I was originally talking about the mechanics of gold earning, which counts in your time, your consumables, and your arrows for the elf class at least. So my ID right now, if I move around, it's blue, right? It's blue. It means something. It means I'm lawful to the game, that I haven't killed any innocent people. If I start killing people, I become chaotic, which turns my ID red, and at the same time, the guards in the game will chase after me if I'm near the vicinity of a town. So if I become chaotic and I become quote-unquote like a rogue, I can only purchase consumables and stuff from NPCs that are not in town. So I could only purchase potions and whatever recoverables from either a wandering merchant or like there are some NPCs that are like not in town, right? Not in a town environment. And they are usually in a remote area where there's like very dangerous with a lot of monsters. But the reason why people will kill other people, obviously one reason is because they're people. People like to kill each other, I guess. Secondly, you drop gear in the game, so you literally have a random chance of dropping a gear, whether you're equipping it or not, that's in your inventory in the field. So people would kill you for items, and this was like the early beginnings of how e-bullying could become a real crime and real harassment to some people. And then in Korea right now, obviously e-bullying and e-crime is classified as normal crime, and you get penalized for it. Anyhow, so I have to factor in that a threat of randomly being killed by stupid violent people, and of course how many people were in my farming area. Then that all factored in, and then I had to count how much gold I earned in that hour and whether that place was okay for farming. And then eventually I would gear myself up. So I farmed gold not to sell gold, but I farmed gold so that I could gear myself up so that I could become better and protect myself, right? And then eventually then I would be more efficient at farming more gold, earning more gold, whatever. And then eventually like there were times that I had to study for exams, but the game is too addictive that I wouldn't. But then because I was a sensible human being, those were the times when I start selling my stuff, like my in-game items, right? I would sell my in-game items so that I could focus on my study. If I sell my in-game items, I have the pleasure of earning money, real life money. And this is of course through a, not a proper path. You don't go out and advertise I'm selling items. You would have to go to a dodgy website, with the risk of getting scammed. I'm the person selling the items, so how would I get scammed? At the time, usually if you sell items and you normally you would meet the person in real life, go to like a LAN cafe, log into each respective account and then do the trade, and then that person would give me the money. However, there was a risk that they could lead me to some shady LAN cafe with like thousands of their friends, and they could beat me up, right? So I was risking that to sell items in real life. At the time, I haven't buffed myself. I gotta use my haste. I gotta all speed up and stuff. Speed up, power up, whatever. Yeah. So when I usually sell gold in real life, I would always get my friends behind, right, to protect me, so I don't get beaten up. Thankfully, in my 6 years of high school, I never got scammed. So that's a good thing. Yeah. So I think and then I also purposely didn't want to sell it in the best price. I wanted to get rid of the items as quick as possible because my exam period is coming, right? So I just wanted to get quick money because I was somewhat positive that I could always farm this back, which is really hard, obviously. So I sold not everything, entirely everything. I sold all the good gear, like the expensive gear, but I still kept my average gear, which would at least get me back to farming again. So, but then with the pleasure of I know that I have earned some pocket money, I don't feel like playing again because I'm weak. So that puts me into study mode, my Asian mode, where I would go back to study. I would study for the exams, and then when the exam period is over, and then you're in your school vacation, what do you think happens? Back to farming, and that was kind of my life for my high school. Yeah, so the class that I played back then was an elf. Um, it was a range class, and oh yeah, how brutal this game was that if you die, you lose XP, and that sounds quite alright, right? Usually MMORPGs, yeah, if you die, there will be a penalty, and losing XP was one of them, and which is fine. But back then, at this game, if you lose XP, at you're like 1% of your current level, it would go negative your level, so you could level down. So for example, let's say if you die to a monster and you lose 10% XP of your current XP and your level, right? Say I'm like 31, and then I'm like, oh, I just level 31, I farmed a little, I grinded a little more, I'm like 31 and 5% up. But then suddenly some guy comes and kills me. Yes, even if someone kills you, you also lost XP. So you could go down to level 30, 95%. If you died at level 31, 5%. So that was also the risk of not getting killed in game. You had to always protect yourself. So just like any modern, games, there are hotkeys, right? There are, buttons to press potions or use skills. There was always this hotkey that I had my finger on, which was the teleport scroll, which teleports you to a random place in the map. Well, technically there's no map because at the time, just like say World of Warcraft, it's an open map, and you just get teleported within a certain vicinity of that area, so you never know. Yes, of course, there is a risk of where it very rarely happen, you teleport right next to where you were, which is pointless, which is also dangerous if the guy trying to kill you is still there. So there was always a position with my fingers where I would get ready to teleport away if I sense danger. Either I'm like mobbed by monsters, or either I spot somebody chasing after me. Yeah, and then people had jobs, like people created jobs with that game. Mage classes had a skill called haste, which stacks up to 20 times. So you sometimes stacking stacking the haste skill, the spell on you 20 times could sound like a very labor-intensive work, right? Because you're casting 20 times on that guy. So it started off as a mage class player getting very lazy, and he's like, oh man, I can't go out to the field, I have danger of dying and losing XP, losing gold, losing items. I'm just gonna stay in town and cast haste to other people and make them pay me, which worked because haste was truly a must-need skill, which could also be covered by purchasing the haste potions from the NPC. But obviously the guy who offered to cast haste to your character from his mage, would offer a cheaper price. So people will use it because it's economically better, right? You're saving money. But there was cooldowns to the spell, and of course, you have limited amount of mana, and then you don't really recover mana as that fast. And now if you're thinking of why can't the mage guy keep using mana potions and then cast the haste spell on you? There was no mana potions in this game. Alright? So the only way of naturally gaining back mana was to just stay still and then hope you naturally gain mana, which you don't get much. You get like 2 or 3 per like 30 seconds. And haste costed like 50 mana or something. So, like just as an example, like so the natural mana regeneration rate was never the was never gonna catch up if you're consecutively using haste, and you will never do it on one go either. You would have to do like 3 hastes, wait a little bit, do another 3 hastes. But then one thing that's happening at the time, if that was to ever happen, there's a cooldown to when you initially cast haste. So if it say that if it lasts for 30 minutes, but if the whole process of casting the haste took you 10 minutes, you're essentially losing 10 minutes of your money worth that you originally paid for, right? Because what they promised is a 30-minute duration of a buff. But because you have to wait that long, you're not really getting that bargain of the deal, that end of the bargain. I gotta work on my English. So what happened is, people at LAN cafes, when there's no customers, they tested out this thing where they would create 20 accounts with 20 mages, line them up in the town, and then whenever someone pays you the money, they would all cast haste simultaneously so that you get the full 20 stack of haste on you, and you can essentially walk away with that. That's when the time starts, without having wait that 20 consecutive initial casts of the haste spell. So eventually what happened was some internet cafes shut down and just did that, because that earned more real life money than actually serving customers who come and wants to play video games in their LAN cafe. So they would set up multiple computers and level up mages, right? They had to level it up until they learned that haste spell, and then place them on different parts of the town. So there was this place where they had hundreds of PCs, right? Literally hundreds of PCs in this internet cafe. And then I guess the guy didn't, like the owner didn't, see much business, like didn't get much profit or whatever. It's like, oh crap, I'm not getting any money out of it. I'm losing money owning this LAN cafe. I might try something different. And then this guy finds out about this. You could cast magic spells in a video game and eventually turns into real life money. Holy shit, that's so good, right? So 100 computers is 100 mages, and then obviously there'll be like a program that links them all together, and then all that stuff is coding and programming, so that you guys get the gist. Yeah, so 100 computers is 100 mages, and then there was like 7 towns in this game all up. It's like a giant island, right? And there's like 7 different towns. And then so eventually you can at least set up 5 stations in 5 different towns, because you need 20 mages to be one whole package, right? So he will set up like an automated system where if when an actual player walks up to a certain spot in the map, then it will trigger the code to prompt the user the trade window where you trade between the characters, and then they would put up a certain amount. They have to put that specified amount, otherwise the program won't trigger. So they would put up that amount of gold to receive the haste spell, and this person was doing a fair business, because this person, as in the guy who's getting the haste treatment, let's say he's a knight. So this knight walks up to this rows of mages. It's like, can I get a haste please? And then walks up to this designated spot. And then what happens is they will trade you. And it'll be like, alright, put up this amount of money. And then the knight will be like, alright, I'll put up, I don't know, like 2,000 gold. It's like, put 2,000 gold, trade successful. And then moment you press OK and then it says trade successful, the haste spell effect would be on top of that knight's head, and then it's like ching, and then it's like very thickened because it's 20 haste spells in one. So it would be like a very thick magic spell aura thing on that guy, and he'll be like thank you and then walk away. And imagine doing that 24/7, because you know MMORPGs are, they don't close and they don't open except those scheduled maintenances, right? So imagine just having that automated. It doesn't even have to be manned. It's just all programmed. And then yeah, so you just set it up, 100 PCs is running, all that guy is just paying for electricity, and then eventually, I don't know, at the end of the month, I guess, he would count how much gold and then just sell gold online. Say, oh, I'm selling this much gold, this much gold. People who buying gold doesn't care where it came from, but then eventually people knew it's most of the supply of the gold is from those the haste sellers, right? Yeah, but then they were making more money than if the LAN cafe actually served customers. So this became a thing, and then there will be a lot of shut down LAN cafes. Like if you walk around the street and it says LAN cafe and it says shut down, most likely they weren't shut down. They just weren't doing the LAN cafe business. They were doing the magic shop. It was literally a magic shop in the 21st century, selling digital magic to in a video game to other people's digital characters and earning money. Yeah, that was a thing. That's crazy. And then yeah, eventually it came on the news and all that. People are like, oh my god, these people are like, you know, making money from non-existent things. Like, because yeah, technically it's a non-existent item, right? It's an intellectual property. It's a digital code. It's a piece of code, like 20 kilobytes of coding. And they're making money out of this. So people like the game developers didn't even, they knew it. Obviously they knew it, but they didn't engage too seriously about it because that actually made the game better. Like people would be more encouraged to play the game because now they know those kind of user-made services like those, you know, buffs were available. Therefore, the players are like, oh, I can actually save money, like save in-game money and save time, and grind more, because back then it's all about time efficiency on grinding. So yeah, what am I doing? Buff up. Yeah, so that was a thing back in the day when all the digital regulations and no such thing as law was ever engaged in it. Now Korea is such an advanced technology where if you download illegal stuff like illegal pornography, they will call you up right away. That's how advanced it is in Korea. They could fine you for downloading illegal stuff. I guess unless, you know, you're using a VPN or something. So yeah, it's taken very seriously. Not as a hostile stance towards games, but just to regulate it. Still, like Korea, you know, makes a lot of foreign money from developing games and such. Like the most popular game right now, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, is from a Korean publisher, Bluehole. Koreans have a lot of talent in those aspects. Still, I guess video games in general, not just Korea, but most places around the world, isn't the best socially accepted activity. But still, there are things that became a real-life regulation and law because how impactful it was. People could do things with video games. And to this day, people trade items, in-game items, with real money. And I mean, it's just it is still borderline whether it's illegal or not. But I think it's just, to my opinion, it's just a personal thing. If you're buying gold and like with real money, I'm sure you have real reasons to do reasons for why. I'm not gonna like say it's a bad thing or whatever. And if you're also selling gold and you know selling gold for profit, I guess that's also because you know, that's what you're good at, I guess, or you have no other way of making a living. So it's just, I think it's just a personal thing, and not that I like fully respect it, but I'm not gonna be like a super, you know, Nazi about it. Like when I was selling gold back in the day, I wasn't doing it for gold, like real money greed either. I was just doing it because it was a way to control myself. Like I said before, when there was a study period, I had to I actually had the balls to give up playing the game by getting rid of like forcing myself to getting rid of all the items I earned and I farmed. And then whenever exams finished, I would go back to my character with weaker items, and then it just gave me the feeling of, oh, I'm playing a new game. So that's how I control myself, by using my hobby to my advantage, I guess, and getting some pocket money in the way. And I was like 15, 16, so like, you know, I don't think when you're 15 or 16. But anyways, yes, the point of all this is that this is the exact game that I was playing when I was of that age. Of course, in this game, it's in mobile version, and now it's kind of catered to the modern day gamers. It has quests, it has free teleports around the map, all the convenient stuff, right? You guys get to get all this luxury if you play games that are released in the modern day. Back in the day, everything costed money and time. No such thing as quests. You grind, you kill monsters for better items, better experience, all that stuff. You have to find rare items that could take you like a week or a month. Pretty crazy. A lot of stories. Some people even like kill people in real life to get, you know, level 10 sword or something, right? Back in the day. It's not like I'm proud about it, but it was a start of just like any, like, you know, changes that happen in this world. People experiment, or, you know, are very afraid of changes. It's just the way how it progressed. Like, you know, people didn't know how to handle it. That's why there was no regulations or law about it. People, like I said, kill people to get better items in a video game. Like, it's unheard of, right? But it was true. It was very savage back then. Thankfully, I was in the right mind to not do those crazy things. Haste. Waffles. The waffles give me extra speed. Also, I can transform, that gives me extra speed as well. Transform into skeleton archer. 4% increased speed. Pretty cool. See, right now I have like so much. I have 40,000 arrows with me. That's 40,000 in Korean. Oh yeah, back in the day, even gold had weight. So if you carried a lot of money, it counted towards your weight. So you had to, like, so that there was a purpose in storage where you store money into your storage, because you want to take off the weight. But then even back then, maybe the developers thought, alright, that's way too extreme. So they took off the weight in the gold. But yeah, when the game like came out at the time, back in like 1999, I think that was about the period, early 2000s, late 90s. Like, gold had weight. So that was crazy shit. You couldn't pick up items if you had too much gold in you. So you had to store gold into your storage, your bank. So to take out that money. And also it was a good practice because, yes, like I said, if you die either by monsters or either by people, gold could be something that you could be dropping also. So you're reducing the risk of losing gold. But then, of course, if you lost your main weapon, then yeah, you have no weapon. You know how savage that is? Imagine you killed by a random guy. Say, random guy that's weaker than you. And then you lost the weapon the only weapon you have that you upgraded to, say, the max level. He kills you, walks up, picks up your weapon, walks away, you respawn at a town with no weapon. What does it mean? You can't do shit. That's how savage it was. Man, like, thankfully I never lost my weapon. I lost like a lot of armor pieces, but armor pieces are alright because you can at least kill shit, right? But if you lose like your sword or your bow, and that's the, like, people usually don't have secondary items because usually there's no point into it. And if you did have a secondary weapon, for like backup wasn't a thing back then. If you didn't have a backup, if you had a secondary weapon that was higher level also, you would usually level that weapon up to sell it. That would be the only goal, to, you know, get more profit. There was no reason, no reason to have a secondary item as a backup. But then, yeah, if you die and you lose your weapon, that's it. You cannot immediately buy a good weapon that will replace it, even if you're rich, because I think the costs of the weapons back then it went like astronomical digits. Like, for example, there would be a safe limit of up to a certain level, your weapon can be safely upgraded. Now, the reason why I use the word safely is because if you upgrade your weapon too high, there's a risk of your weapon evaporating. So the rarity of high-level weapons, like maxed out upgraded weapons, were very, very rare, and of course cost a lot of money because people would buy a lot of those weapons, and also the scrolls that upgrade your weapons in a mass amount, which, you know, you could assume that that person have that mass amount because he purchased it all with real money. And also at the same time, there's no guarantee that they would all be successful, right? So weapon never had a maximum cap of the upgrade numbers, but usually you would see 9. Plus 9 was like, plus 9 was good enough. Like, you could call it a soft cap if you wanted to. You could go over a 9, but it's like a 1 in a million, literally. So up to plus 6 was safe. Up to plus 6, you would never break your weapon or evaporate your weapon. The trouble was plus 7, 8, 9. So plus 7 was like, so that you would think, oh, it's the first level after the safety zone, so it's not gonna be that brutal of a statistical percentage, right? Wrong, because plus 6, up to plus 6 is 100%, and then normal people would think, oh, and then maybe it's like gradually lower, which is fair. Like, for example, up to plus 6, 100%, and then maybe plus 7 is 80, and then plus 8 is like 60%, plus 9 is 40%, like say 20% deduction on each higher level. That wasn't the case. Plus 6 to plus 7 was like 10%. The 10% chance of you making from plus 6 to plus 7. And then plus 7 to 8 was like 2%. So I'm like, why is this so... Are they discouraging us to upgrade it? But then obviously, it's just making the items more rare would reduce the number of overly produced high-level amounts, which is fair. I think it's like an economical control. But then at the same time, it makes them that much rare, which is super expensive. So yeah, and then plus 9 would be like a decimal point percentage. I did see in back in the day, someone did actually make a plus 12, and that's like 0.00001% of chance of getting it, and that guy, whoever it was, made it. And then if that they put a price up there, whatever the person offers is the price. Essentially, you could buy a house with that plus 12 sword back in the day. I don't know if it was ever sold, but at those times, people would actually pay that much money for that, because they know that the person who is able to afford that would be able to use that sword to make more money, right? So yeah, so plus 6 item, at least even plus 7 items were never even considered to be have a real life money price tag. It had to be at least plus 8. Plus 8, the reason people will buy plus 8 was for the upgrade to plus 9. Not really to use the plus 8. And then plus 9s would be the most go-to weapon to actually use in a real farming situation. Plus 10 was more of a bragging rights until it became kind of more common later on. But plus 10 was just bragging rights and costed a lot of money. Am I still? I'm gonna lose my buff. Yeah. So like, let's imagine plus 6 items were in gold wise. Plus 6 items were like say 100,000, right? 100,000 gold. Plus 7 would be like about a double of that, so 200,000 gold. Or maybe a little more because of that rarity as well, even plus 7s. Plus 8 would be about 1,000,000. See how big of a jump that is? That's only 2 levels up from the safe zone of the upgrade, and it's 10 times more expensive than the plus 6 weapon. Now, plus 9 would then be 150 million. So price jump was from 100,000, which is plus 6, about 200,000 to 300,000 for a plus 7 item. And then about 1,000,000 to 2,000,000 for the plus 8 item. And then suddenly plus 9 item is like 150 million gold. So yeah, it was like gradually expensive. Woo! So yeah, it was crazy. So what I would usually do is, but then also yes, it's very luck based. The upgrade scroll each was about 100,000, 100,000 or 200,000. So if you had 10 upgrade scrolls, and somehow, some way, you went straight to 0 to plus 10. You made from investing $1,000,000 plus the item cost, like the weapon cost, into like 100-folds. So, and which I doubt it ever happened to anyone. Maybe one person, you know, you never know. But yeah, the rarity of that was so crazy that the gold price, the price jump would be that high. So back to the point of why if you lost your weapon for whatever reason, either killed by a monster or killed by some scumbag, there's no way you had 150 million just ready in your bank. No effing way. Yeah, if you lost a plus 9 or plus 10 weapon, right? Yeah, of course, plus 9 is 150 million-ish. So imagine how much plus 10 and plus 11 weapons were. Astronomical digits. Crazy shit. Yeah, so that's the crazy Korean first generation MMORPG games are like. There's still a lot of stories like there would then eventually usually a guild of people who you just specialized in stealing people's items, and that was part of the game. Like the game masters, like the game owners, the developers didn't care because that's how the game was designed. They encourage you to be pirates, literally. That costs a lot of money. And then eventually, guess what happened? And then there was Power Rangers in the game. People actually volunteered to hunt down the chaotic people, the people with the red colored names that turns people into chaotic status if they start killing people. There was actually a benefit of becoming a vigilante in the game. They give you a damage buff. They give you 10% damage buff if you were a player killer. So that I guess that encouraged them to kill more people. But then, like I said, they have penalties. If they want to get around the world, they can never go into towns and interact with any NPCs. All the guards in town will try to kill you. You can only purchase consumables from a traveling merchant NPC that casually roams around the map with like a horse or something. and some NPCs that were just like in random places that sells potions and whatever. You just had to know these places that are usually crawling with a lot of high level and dangerous monsters. So you could live that life if that's something you would do, and then eventually people like gathered up, like formed a group of vigilantes, became like criminal groups like Gotham City. Yeah, and then people would actually put like in-game rich people, right? In-game rich people would hire in-game actual players who are like voluntarily bodyguards. Well, not voluntarily, because the in-game rich people would pay these guys to be, hey, can you? I'm like going from here to here, which is not travel. It's not possible to travel by teleportation or any other means. Like you literally had to, like this game, you had to literally walk across the whole continent. For some places, they didn't allow your teleports. There was no such thing as saving your respawn area. Your respawn area was always the nearest town. Yeah, so like it was real, man. Back in the day, you had to walk across the whole continent. It doesn't take much, but the time it takes wasn't the problem. It was the monsters and the random people trying to kill you for their own greed. Um, so people would hire bodyguards like in game, which kind of ran the game's economy quite well, I think. People would use gold for justice, and the game design of how you would actually have to spend money to get consumables to keep your character surviving from dying. Plus, people use gold to fund bad things like killing people and pirating. So it was quite a interesting concept. Um, yeah, and then eventually then there was like a system where you can conquer forts. Oh my god, this is a whole nother chapter. But eventually there were castles in each locations which governed the taxes of whatever people buy from the NPCs. Oh my god. Alright, so the game had like 50 different servers, right? They're all playing the same game, just different servers. But some servers would have double the cost of potions than the other server, only because the castle owner is a dick. He would put up the taxes so high that the non-royalty, the peasants, the civilians would have no choice but to buy potions for that price. Now there was another way to get cheaper potions, which were not taxed, is to travel to a certain island that was not governed by any castle, which would always have a fixed rate of the potion costs. But then it's so inconvenient to go to a port, like a pier, get on a boat, takes about real life 5 to 10 minutes to get to that island. Buy potions where you can't even purchase the infinite amount of, because I told you there are weights in this game, weight limits of how much you can carry shit. To buy limited amount of potions, come all the way back to your farming location, your grinding location, and it will take you another like 10 to 30 minutes of just transit in game. And then do like 30 minutes of grinding, and then you do another 30 minutes to get the potions. Was never inconvenient. So people had no choice but to purchase, if they wanted to save time, but to purchase those expensive potions that the castle owner set the tax rates of. And then, yes, the castle owner even becomes more rich, because at the end of the month, all the money that people use to buy potions, the tax cut goes to the castle owner's guild. So it just promoted rich people becoming more rich and poor people becoming poor, like the real life. Yeah, and then I don't know, they became bullies and shit without really being a bully, because the game design was like that. If your guild was strong enough to conquer a castle, you could tax the whole game and just get money by taxing the potions. Crazy shit. Ugh. Yeah, and then there were some stories of other guilds rebelling against them to, because the game gave you a fair moment where you can actually announce the invasion to the castle, and you could actually, take over the castle if you had a stronger force. But where would all that money come from, right? To fund all the potions, the gear, the people, um, all your hard-earned money in game, that to prepare the rebel army to try to take over the greedy castle owner and the guild, who earns money by just setting numbers and taking money from innocent people farming to level up their characters, right? There would always be at an advantage, like financial advantage, to beat the rebels, unless the rebel was the entire server, which is highly unlikely. But yes, there was some like in-game wars that took really long. Like I think there was one war that took a whole week, um, which was very strategic as well. Both teams were very strategic. They had a whole team of people just delivering potions. That's all they do. Remember how I told you there's weight limits? Even if you're the best tank in the game, there are limits of how much you can tank. Even if all the healers try to heal you, they will run out of mana eventually, right? So, um, hey, sup Shane? Did I pre-order SNES Classic? No, I did not, because I'm not that interested. That's, I guess, for the people who like retro games. Yeah, so the game, it was very political of its own, and it was quite a social experiment because people would create social systems that weren't really what the game promoted, but it was capable of doing so because of a simple mechanic of how you can kill people. So eventually people stood up against it to become, a justice abiding citizen, or like, they actually made their own police forces to make sure these pirates don't do much bad stuff in the server. So yeah, Street Fighter 2, I play that competitively. I don't need Super Nintendo to play Street Fighter 2. I play the arcade version, so that's an insult. Anyways, yeah, so again, I'm really happy to be very nostalgic by playing this game again in my phones. Is there a way?